Hey guys, today I decided it would be a good time to make a short video about my first impressions of the First Descendant, a third-person PvE looter shooter game made and published by the South Korean studio Nexon. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about Nexon, they're famous for their pay-to-win practices, shutting down servers for titles people spent a lot of money on, and most notably they're known for releasing this absolute mistake of a game on Steam of all places. With that being said, if the things I've listed so far don't really bother you, and you're in for the boob windows and bunny costumes, this game might be just the thing you're looking for. In fact, the gorgeous female character models are among the very few things that made me give this game a shot in the first place, given that I'm not huge on third-person shooters. I'm sure by now you've seen a lot of main characters nowadays being absolute abominations, or at the very least, women with jaws hammered out by Hephaestus himself for the sole purpose to tank blows from the likes of Eddie Hall and Brian Shaw, so I'd say the First Descendant is a very welcome and above all else, very needed change of scenery for many players, myself included. Now, having played only 6 hours from the game, I can't give you an in-depth review, hence why the video is called First Impressions and not everything you need to know about the First Descendant. That being the case, I'll talk exclusively about my experience with the title in question from the perspective of the only character I played as, which was Visa. I think that's how I say her name, so I'm gonna call her Visa from now on. So Visa appears to be a support class, and she boasts ice abilities that aren't bad in the slightest, but I mostly find myself using just one of those spells when fighting mobs. The AoE attack, which is basically her ultimate, can indeed be utilized as a means of slowing down advancing waves of enemies. However, in my opinion, the character's moveset combined with the fact that you can get pretty decent guns and upgrades very early on in this game makes that ability more suitable for debuffing raid bosses as opposed to using it on smaller targets that generally die from 1 or 2 shots to the head. But I guess it all depends on your playstyle. For me, the grappling hook and the dodge roll are more than enough to make me feel the thrill of the battle while drop-kicking monsters and pulling off narrow escapes. So if you enjoy being a mage, that's fine. But as I said, you can totally play this character without even using any of your abilities in regular missions and have an absolute blast in the process. Speaking of missions, they're simple and straight to the point, primarily revolving around defending certain objects from being destroyed, blowing up generators yourself, escorting drones, and recycling stuff, all the while trying not to get overrun by mobs. I'm sure there are lots of types of chores you can do to grind for money and materials, but as I've already mentioned, I haven't yet seen all there is to the game, so if there are more variations, please let me know in the comments. In the spirit of tower defense games, the enemy stages get progressively harder as you clear them one by one, and they usually conclude with a boss fight, or alternatively facing off a couple of bullet sponges. The First Descendant lets you do those jobs either alone or in a group of 4, where you have the option to make the session private, but also leave it open for randoms to join in the fray. When it comes to movement, I can't say I'm impressed with the air strafe. It feels extremely wooden, and you're not able to do consecutive jumps at all. There's no fall damage in the game, however, much like in Apex Legends, you experience a brief stun when hitting the ground from high altitude. The stagger can indeed be slightly annoying, especially after having too much fun with the grapple hook, and speaking of the grapple device, it's absolutely awesome. As someone who has a soft spot for Titanfall mechanics, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that ability in the First Descendant as well. Not only did they make it a viable traversal tool, but they'd also add some depth to it, like vertical flinging, as well as the ability to attach yourself to enemies and perform gnarly pounces with a lot of weight to them. You can do flips in midair too, and if executed correctly, flinging yourself over ledges plus jump grants you a slight forward boost, which albeit barely feasible in PvE combat, it makes you feel more in control of your actions instead of locking in an animation you can't cancel. The hook attaches to literally every surface, and you can even use tree trunks to gain altitude. Unlike many games where the developers are trying everything in their power to restrict your movement by not letting you utilize the topography of the map, in the First Descendant, if you see a narrow banister or even a small protrusion from a wall high up in the air, you'll most likely be able to stand on it and turn it into a strategic vantage point or even a temporary cover after being lit like a candle by a bunch of cyborgs. All in all, the grappling device is awesome, loving it. The dodge mechanic is pretty cool too, super responsive, and I just love how there's no stamina drain. Thank fuck Dark Souls didn't manage to seep through the code of this game. Like seriously, I'm so happy I don't have to worry about running out of breath after 2 dodge rolls and being done in like a rodent in a snake farm due to injected artificial difficulty. The guns in the First Descendant are pretty decent. You have assault rifles, tactical rifles, various machine guns, snipers, hand cannons, which basically serve as revolvers, grenade launchers, and also one type of weapon I forgot the name of that's very reminiscent of the Shark FL3 laser from Fear. Not exactly sure if I still have it on me actually, I might have even dismantled it for materials by mistake, but in case I did, I need to get my hands on one again. There's also display of blood when you shoot your opponents, which is always a plus. Enemies AI can be a bit predictable in the sense that it operates on the basis of distance from players, less so on aggro. A lot of the mobs would also perform a cheeky sidestep upon aiming at their heads, as a result of which unexperienced players might think those NPCs are a bit more complex than they actually are, but I've seen worse. And to be frank, I find it enjoyable when they evade my sniper shots every once in a while. The story of the game is alright I guess, you're fighting for the good guys, and you're trying to protect the world from alien invaders and their leaders, either, but I don't want to divulge too much from the narrative since this isn't the focus of the video. One important thing to know is that the game supports full cross-platform, meaning Xbox, PlayStation and PC gamers can play together in the same lobby, and you don't have to sign into Sony or create a Nexon account in order to access the services. This quality of life feature though comes with a little caveat. I highly recommend that you read the terms and conditions before installing the First Descendant, because for many of you they might be a deal breaker, especially if you haven't played a live service title before. To quickly summarize what you absolutely have to come to terms with when you get into a free-to-play model such as this game: first and foremost, forget about owning anything. You don't buy this product. You're just being given the opportunity to play it for as long as the servers exist. And knowing Nexon's track record of shutting down their multiplayer-only titles, that information is all the more valuable for seasoned and new gamers alike. All of the money you decide to spend on character cosmetics, XP and items are non-refundable, and you can claim ownership of those no matter how many of them you bought. The Korean publisher behind the First Descendant can terminate your account without giving you heads up, so what I would suggest is try and behave in private messages. In all of these modern titles there is usually a script filtering offensive language, and they can easily look up the accounts of people who have used derogatory terms against other players. Death threats are most definitely in the higher tiers of player activity that can get you in trouble with the authorities, and Doctor disrespecting someone is without a doubt up there too. And look guys, this isn't gaming as we knew it 15-20 years ago. Free titles such as this one might make you think they're targeting primarily countries where people can't afford to buy games on the regular, but the aggressive monetization tells another story. The lack of barrier of entry isn't a charitable act from Nexon's side in the slightest. It is there to secure an influx of players of varying socioeconomic status, thus increasing the pool of gamers they can make money off of. And now you're probably thinking that I'm straight pulling stuff out of my rear, but the truth is, companies such as the one I'm talking about right now can still benefit monetarily from people who don't spend money on free-to-play IPs. How, you ask? Well, by simply having your personal data sold to third parties. One way you can think of this whole scheme is, imagine countries with low GDP as being a passive base income for the Korean game makers, while states where people have significantly higher disposable income are their gold mines. One generates money from sold personal data, and the other from offering their info as well as by purchasing those sweet $99 bundles. And this is where we go full circle when it comes to the Western market and its huge influence on the games aiming for the fat stacks. Or as one might say, with great rewards come great restrictions. So if you ever decide to drop an F-bomb in this game's chat, be aware that Korea isn't the only one supervising your activity, and some people hate being called out, as a result of which the chances of losing everything you've grinded for, or worse, paid for, are pretty damn high. After establishing what you'll be getting into should you agree to the terms and conditions, I'd like to make one thing very clear. I'm not against this game succeeding whatsoever. I'm just relaying information that might be useful to you before giving the First Descendant a go. In fact, I believe Nexon's newest game is a step in the right direction when it comes to giving people the chance to play as beautiful characters, and also by refraining itself from shoving down certain trends down our throats. That said, I feel like I had to address what needed to be said, and the truth is, the First Descendant just has the full package when it comes to microtransactions. A few other things I found annoying that have nothing to do with monetization and the games as a service model are the constant stuttering and visual glitches. Just to preface this, my PC is pushing the high mid-tier threshold, and based on the recommended settings, I could easily run this title on Ultra with ray tracing off of course, but the jank is definitely there, and I hope Nexon will fix this in future patches. Still, I probably shouldn't get my hopes too high, since full lobbies are apparently more important than performance in the main hub, but I digress. My other gripe with this game is the absolute ADHD Gen Alpha main menu, which in all honesty makes me wanna vomit. It is so bad. There is so much crap the game's throwing at you at once that it almost feels like you need 5 work days to figure out the options tab alone, and another weekend to get up to speed with everything in the hub. I really miss the simple old game menus where you could only see and tweak what you needed, instead of having 50 sub-menus just for the inventory, which by the way, and let me know if I'm seeing this right because I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around this, is a sub-menu in the inventory tab. Let me reiterate this in case you somehow missed my point. Inventory? Inside the inventory, where a single gun has more shit to learn about than a university algebra textbook. Why? I'm launching this game to shoot things and look at round asses. I'm not here to study. I've studied enough, now I wanna relax and shoot fucking aliens. Just imagine coming home after 8 hours at school and the first thing you lay your eyes on is this. I swear, if I were in charge of that absolute treachery against gamers, I would remove more than half of it and still be able to retain 100% of the menu's content. Please stop making bloated, overcomplicated and nausea-inducing game menus. Seriously, they're not fun and they most definitely aren't helping new players find their bearings. Right. With all the negatives out of the way, I think it's time for a verdict. Is the game enjoyable? Yes, I plan on playing more and unlock a bunch of characters I've been eyeing out from the get-go. Because guess what? I like the way they look, especially Freyna. I just can't get enough of the neon green canisters paired with the dark leather outfit. That style is right up my alley, and I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this YouTube channel, but visually she reminds me a lot of AI Angela. So yeah, Freyna is definitely next on my list. Now, when it comes to buying stuff, what I would recommend is, if you're dead set on obtaining characters locked behind a paywall, or just want to skip some of the grind, pay as much as what you think the game costs in the range between $0 and $60, and then stop giving Nexon money. They already make enough from third-party websites, and let's say that a quarter of the players during the July 4th peak spent $40 on cosmetics alone. That's almost 2.5 million solely from microtransactions, which is more than what some AAA games made in the span of years in the 2000s and early 2010s. Let that sink in. So if I were you, I would only purchase coins after verifying the game is doing well months after its release. A dwindling player base and hacking issues are clear indicators that a multiplayer live service game will be shut down sooner than later, and if that happens with the First Descendant, I'm most definitely out. So pay attention to the trends and be wise with your money because, again, you do not own this game. There's no physical copies, you can't play LAN nor create private lobbies after the main servers are shut down. Once a live service title is pulled out from online stores, it's over. And yeah, these were my first impressions from the First Descendant. If you found this video useful, make sure to hit the like button, tell me what you think about the game in the comments, a sub will be appreciated as well, and yeah, stay awesome guys, until next time.